March 15, 1945, 12 kilometers northeast of Aachen, Germany. The morning mist clung to the cobblestones of a bombed-out village as Private First Class Marcus Williams crouched behind the twisted remains of what had once been a church bell tower. At 19 years old, with hands that had once spiraled perfect passes across the gridirons of rural Alabama, he clutched a standard-issue Mark II fragmentation device, weighing exactly 1 pound and 11 ounces. The irony was not lost on him that those same hands, which had been deemed unworthy to shake white teammates' hands back home, might now determine the fate of an entire infantry company. What none of the 7 German tank crew members positioned 300 meters ahead could have anticipated was that their 68-ton mechanical marvel, armed with an 88mm main gun capable of penetrating 4 inches of steel plating at 2,000 meters, would be rendered useless by a quarterback's precision throw from a young man whose grandfather had picked cotton in fields not far from where Williams first learned to spiral a football through tire swings hanging from oak trees. Before we dive into this story, make sure to subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. It really helps support the channel. This is the account of how athletic prowess, battlefield ingenuity, and split-second timing converge to demonstrate that sometimes the most sophisticated military technology could be overcome by the most fundamental human skills, and how a moment of individual brilliance would challenge everything both sides believed about courage, capability, and the unpredictable nature of conflict itself. The morning had begun like countless others for the men of the 761st Tank Battalion, one of only 2 African-American tank destroyer battalions to see combat in the European theater of operations. Williams had awakened at 0500 hours in a requisitioned farmhouse cellar that reeked of moldy potatoes and diesel fuel, sharing the cramped space with 11 other soldiers from his squad. Staff Sergeant Robert Washington, a 26-year-old former automotive mechanic from Detroit, had been studying tactical maps by the light of a kerosene lamp since before dawn, his weathered fingers tracing potential routes through the village of Kriegsdorf. The village itself had been contested for 6 days, changing hands twice between American and German forces. Intelligence reports indicated that approximately 40 German soldiers, supported by at least 1 heavy tank, had established defensive positions among the stone houses and narrow streets. What the intelligence reports had failed to accurately convey was the specific nature of that heavy tank, a Tiger I Model E, manufactured in the Henschel factories during the summer of 1944, bearing the tactical number 512 painted in Gothic numerals on its turret sides. Obergefreiter Klaus Müller, the tank's gunner, had served with this particular crew since their training at Sennelager the previous autumn. At 22 years old, Müller possessed an almost supernatural ability to calculate range and elevation adjustments, having scored confirmed hits on American armor at distances exceeding 2,000 meters during the fighting in the Ardennes. His commander, Hauptfeldwebel Friedrich Richter, was a 34-year-old veteran of campaigns in Poland, France, and Russia, who had earned the Iron Cross First Class during the siege of Sevastopol 2 years earlier. The technical specifications of their Tiger tank represented the pinnacle of German armored engineering during this period of the conflict. The vehicle's frontal armor measured 4½ inches thick, sloped at optimal angles to deflect incoming projectiles. Its main gun, the legendary 88mm KWK 36L56 cannon, could fire armor-piercing rounds with muzzle velocities of 2,600 feet per second. The tank's Maybach HL 230 P45 gasoline engine generated 700 horsepower, though fuel consumption averaged approximately 1 gallon for every mile traveled under combat conditions. Williams had learned these statistics not from military intelligence briefings, but from conversations with captured German tank crew members during his assignment to interrogation duties the previous month. His facility with languages, he spoke fluent German, learned from his maternal grandmother, who had emigrated from Bavaria in 1897, had made him valuable for gathering tactical intelligence from prisoners of war. This linguistic ability, combined with his educational background as one of only 17 African-American students to attend Tuskegee Institute on academic scholarship before the conflict began, had earned him unofficial recognition as the company's expert on German armored capabilities. The irony of his current situation was not lost on Williams as he checked his equipment one final time. Back home in Selma, Alabama, he had been prohibited from playing football at the local high school due to segregation policies, instead participating in games organized by the Colored Methodist Episcopal Church every Sunday afternoon after services. His coach, Reverend Moses Jackson, had been a former player at Fisk University who recognized Williams's extraordinary ability to read defensive formations and deliver accurate throws under pressure. During his senior year, Williams had completed 67% of his pass attempts, with 41 touchdown passes and only 6 interceptions. Those same skills, the ability to calculate trajectory while under pressure, to anticipate movement patterns, and to deliver objects with pinpoint accuracy, would prove invaluable in circumstances that Reverend Jackson could never have imagined when he first taught Williams the fundamentals of quarterback mechanics. The 761st Tank Battalion had been activated at Camp Claiborne, Louisiana, in March of 1942, part of a limited experiment in employing African-American personnel in armored units. The battalion's official designation was Tank Destroyer Battalion, equipped with M10 Wolverine tank destroyers and M36 Jackson tank destroyers. These vehicles, while effective against most German armor, were significantly outgunned by the Tiger tanks they now faced regularly in the closing months of the conflict. Captain James Morrison, the company commander, was a 29-year-old West Point graduate from Vermont who had specifically requested assignment to the 761st after witnessing the performance of African-American units during training exercises at Fort Hood. Morrison possessed an unusual combination of tactical acumen and personal conviction that made him both respected by his men and viewed with suspicion by some fellow officers who questioned his motives for serving with a segregated unit. The strategic situation facing Morrison's company on this particular morning was increasingly desperate. German resistance in the area had intensified dramatically following the crossing of the Rhine River by Allied forces 3 weeks earlier. Intelligence reports indicated that German commanders were implementing a strategy of defending key villages and transportation hubs with small but heavily armed units, designed to slow Allied advance and inflict maximum casualties. The Tiger tank positioned in Kriegsdorf represented exactly this type of defensive strongpoint. Sergeant First Class Tommy Henderson, the squad's senior non-commissioned officer, had served in North Africa with the 92nd Infantry Division before transferring to armored units. Henderson possessed encyclopedic knowledge of German tactical doctrine, gained through 18 months of combat experience across 3 different theaters of operations. His assessment of their current situation was characteristically blunt. Their M36 tank destroyer, while effective against most German armor, stood little chance in a direct engagement with a Tiger tank at the ranges dictated by the narrow village streets. The mathematical realities were stark and unforgiving. The Tiger's 88mm gun could penetrate the M36's frontal armor at ranges up to 1,500 meters, while the American vehicle's 76mm gun required positioning within 800 meters to achieve reliable penetration of the Tiger's frontal armor. Given the confined urban environment, any engagement would likely occur at ranges between 200 and 500 meters, where the German tank held overwhelming advantages in both firepower and protection. Williams had spent considerable time during the previous evening studying the tactical manual for the Tiger tank, a captured document that Henderson had acquired during the fighting near Cologne 2 weeks earlier. The manual, printed in Gothic script on high-quality paper bearing the stamp of the Panzer Training School at Bergen, contained detailed diagrams of the tank's construction and operational procedures. One particular section had caught Williams's attention: the description of the commander's cupola and its associated vision ports. The Tiger tank's commander operated from a position elevated above the main turret, protected by a rotating cupola fitted with 6 vision blocks, providing 360-degree observation capability. However, the cupola's design included a critical vulnerability. The commander's hatch could be jammed shut if the external locking mechanism became damaged or obstructed. The manual specifically warned crew members to ensure that the hatch mechanism remained clear of debris during combat operations, as a jammed hatch would trap the commander inside and severely limit the tank's operational effectiveness. This information had seemed merely academic when Williams first read it by candlelight the previous evening. Now, as he observed the Tiger tank positioned behind a partially collapsed stone wall 300 meters away, the tactical implications became suddenly and dramatically relevant. The tank's commander was clearly visible in his cupola, scanning the surrounding area through binoculars while coordinating with infantry positions scattered among the village houses. Private Second Class David Johnson, Williams's closest friend within the squad, had positioned himself approximately 50 meters to the left, with the squad's Browning automatic rifle and 12 magazines of ammunition. Johnson, a 20-year-old former textile worker from Charlotte, North Carolina, possessed exceptional marksmanship skills that had earned him recognition as the company's best rifle shooter during training at Fort Hood. His role in the current operation was to provide suppressive fire against German infantry positions while Williams attempted to close distance with the Tiger tank. The tactical plan, such as it was, had been developed during a hurried conference in the farmhouse cellar 3 hours earlier. Henderson had outlined the basic concept. Williams would advance along the southern edge of the village, using bomb damage and debris for concealment, while Johnson provided covering fire from his position among the ruined houses along the northern perimeter. The objective was to position Williams close enough to the Tiger tank to employ his Mark II fragmentation device against the vehicle's tracks or engine compartment. However, Williams had privately developed a modification to this plan based on his analysis of the Tiger tank manual and his assessment of the tactical situation. Rather than attempting to damage the tank's mechanical systems, he intended to target the commander's hatch with his fragmentation device, potentially jamming the mechanism and trapping the commander inside his cupola. This approach offered several advantages. It required less explosive force to achieve meaningful results, it could be accomplished from a greater distance, and it would significantly degrade the tank's operational capabilities without necessarily destroying the vehicle entirely. The technical challenges of this approach were considerable. The commander's cupola was positioned approximately 10 feet above ground level, and the hatch mechanism was protected by armored housing measuring roughly 12 inches by 8 inches. To achieve the necessary accuracy, Williams would need to deliver his fragmentation device to within a few inches of the target, while accounting for the ballistic trajectory of a 1-pound object thrown from a distance of approximately 50 meters. These calculations came naturally to Williams, drawing upon thousands of hours of practice, throwing footballs at targets ranging from tire swings to milk bottles balanced on fence posts. Reverend Jackson had taught him to visualize the trajectory as a mathematical curve, accounting for initial velocity, gravitational acceleration, and air resistance. The weight and aerodynamic characteristics of a Mark II fragmentation device were significantly different from those of a regulation football, but the fundamental principles of projectile motion remained constant. At 0830 hours, the operation began with Johnson opening fire on German infantry positions located in a 2-story stone house approximately 400 meters from the Tiger tank's position. The distinctive sound of the Browning automatic rifle echoed across the village as Johnson fired controlled bursts, each burst consisting of 3 to 4 rounds aimed at windows and doorways where German soldiers had been observed. The response was immediate and intense: rifle fire, machine gun bursts, and the distinctive crack of Panzerfaust rounds being fired at Johnson's position. Williams used this distraction to begin his advance along the predetermined route, moving in short rushes between bomb craters and collapsed walls. The southern edge of the village had been heavily damaged during previous fighting, with most buildings reduced to skeletal frameworks of stone and twisted metal. This destruction provided excellent concealment, but made movement treacherous, as loose rubble and unstable walls created both noise and physical hazards. The Tiger tank's crew had immediately responded to Johnson's fire by traversing their turret and engaging his position with both the main gun and coaxial machine gun. The 88mm rounds impacted the stone houses near Johnson's position with devastating effect, each explosion sending clouds of dust and debris into the air. Williams could hear the tank's engine note change as the driver repositioned the vehicle to improve fields of fire. The sound of the 700-horsepower Maybach engine distinct even amid the chaos of small arms fire. Obergefreiter Müller, the Tiger's gunner, had acquired Johnson's position after the third burst of automatic rifle fire and was methodically engaging the area with high explosive rounds. Müller's technique reflected his extensive combat experience. Rather than attempting to score direct hits on a fleeting target, he was systematically destroying the buildings that provided Johnson with cover, forcing the American soldier to constantly reposition and limiting his ability to maintain effective fire. Hauptfeldwebel Richter, observing from his commander's cupola, had identified the tactical pattern developing around his position. The automatic rifle fire from the north appeared to be suppressive rather than aimed, suggesting an attempt to fix his attention in that direction, while other forces maneuvered against his flanks or rear. Richter had encountered this tactic numerous times during fighting in Russia and had developed effective countermeasures based on careful observation and methodical response. Williams had covered approximately 200 meters of his planned route when the tactical situation changed dramatically. A second German position, previously unobserved, opened fire from a cluster of farm buildings located southeast of the Tiger tank's position. This new fire came from multiple automatic weapons and effectively blocked Williams's intended approach route, forcing him to seek cover behind the remains of what had once been a village church. The church had been constructed sometime during the 13th century, built from local limestone with walls nearly 3 feet thick. Allied bombing had destroyed the roof and upper portions of the structure, but the lower walls remained intact, providing substantial protection against small arms fire. Williams found himself in what had once been the nave, surrounded by broken pews and scattered religious artifacts covered in dust and debris. From this position, Williams could observe the Tiger tank through a gap in the church's eastern wall, approximately 300 meters away. The tank had advanced slightly from its original position and was now hull down behind a stone wall, with only its turret visible above the obstruction. The commander remained active in his cupola, alternating between observing Johnson's position through binoculars and coordinating with infantry units via radio communication. The distance was significantly greater than Williams had anticipated, pushing the limits of accuracy for a hand-thrown projectile. However, the tactical situation was deteriorating rapidly, as German infantry were beginning to maneuver toward both Johnson's position and Williams's current location. Within 10 to 15 minutes, the squad would be surrounded and cut off from supporting forces. Williams examined his Mark II fragmentation device one final time, noting its weight distribution and aerodynamic characteristics. The device was essentially cylindrical, measuring 4½ inches in length and 2½ inches in diameter, with a safety lever held in place by a removable pin. When thrown, it would function similarly to a football in terms of basic ballistics, though its greater density and different shape would affect both trajectory and accuracy. The technical challenge was further complicated by wind conditions within the village. The morning breeze was variable, shifting direction as it moved between destroyed buildings and around obstacles. Williams observed debris and dust movement for several minutes, noting that wind speed appeared to be approximately 8 to 10 miles per hour from the southwest, with occasional gusts reaching 15 miles per hour. These conditions would require significant compensation in both trajectory and timing. Williams calculated that he would need to aim approximately 2 feet to the northeast of the target to account for wind drift, while adjusting his release point to compensate for the additional weight of the fragmentation device compared to a standard football. The margin for error was minimal. The commander's hatch mechanism measured only 12 inches by 8 inches, and even a near miss would likely fail to achieve the intended jamming effect. At 0845 hours, Williams made his decision to attempt the throw despite the challenging conditions and extended range. Johnson's suppressive fire was becoming less effective as German forces adapted to his position, and Williams could hear German infantry moving through the village streets in systematic search patterns. The opportunity for a coordinated withdrawal was rapidly disappearing, making immediate action essential. Williams positioned himself at the eastern wall of the church ruins, using a gap between limestone blocks that provided an unobstructed view of the Tiger tank's position. He removed the safety pin from his fragmentation device, noting that the standard 4-second delay would require precise timing to achieve optimal results. The device needed to detonate at the moment it reached the commander's cupola, rather than bouncing off the armor or exploding prematurely in flight. The throw itself would need to combine several elements: the spiral grip and release technique he had perfected during thousands of practice sessions in Alabama, compensation for wind conditions based on his observation of environmental factors, and precise timing to coordinate the device's 4-second fuse with its flight time to the target. Williams estimated that flight time would be approximately 2½ seconds, meaning he needed to release the device approximately 1½ seconds after removing the safety pin. Hauptfeldwebel Richter had observed movement among the church ruins, but had not yet identified Williams as a specific threat. From Richter's perspective, the church provided excellent defensive positions for enemy infantry, but its distance from his tank made direct assault with handheld weapons unlikely. Richter's primary concern remained the automatic rifle fire from the north, which was preventing his infantry support from maneuvering effectively against the American positions. Mueller continued his methodical destruction of buildings near Johnson's position, firing high-explosive rounds at approximately 30-second intervals. Each round was carefully aimed at structural weak points, designed to bring down entire walls rather than simply creating holes in masonry. This technique reflected standard German doctrine for urban combat: systematic destruction of enemy cover to force movement into prepared killing zones. Williams gripped his fragmentation device using the same finger placement he had employed for hundreds of touchdown passes during high school games in Alabama. His thumb positioned along the device's bottom edge, his index and middle fingers spread across the top surface for stability, his ring finger and pinky providing guidance control during release. The grip felt familiar, despite the device's different weight and texture, allowing him to focus on the more challenging aspects of trajectory calculation and timing. At 0847 hours, Williams removed the safety pin and began his throwing motion. The 4-second countdown had begun, creating an irreversible commitment to the attempt regardless of changing tactical conditions. His throwing motion followed the classic quarterback technique taught by Reverend Jackson. Step forward with the opposite foot, rotate hips and shoulders to generate torque, bring the throwing arm through in a smooth arc, release at the optimal point for trajectory and accuracy. The fragmentation device left Williams's hand with a tight spiral, its aerodynamic characteristics creating a stable flight path despite the challenging wind conditions. Williams had calculated his compensation correctly. The device traveled on a high arc that carried it over the intervening obstacles and toward the Tiger tank's position. The spiral rotation helped maintain stability during flight, though the device's greater weight caused it to drop more rapidly than a football would under similar conditions. Obergefreiter Mueller caught sight of the incoming object during its final second of flight, recognizing immediately that it was not a conventional projectile, but some form of handheld explosive device. Mueller shouted a warning to his commander, but the device's trajectory and timing left insufficient opportunity for evasive action. Richter had just enough time to look up and identify the threat before the device impacted directly on his commander's cupola. The Mark II fragmentation device functioned exactly as designed, detonating 4 seconds after Williams had removed the safety pin. The explosion occurred with the device positioned directly above the commander's hatch mechanism, with the blast force concentrated downward onto the locking assembly. The mechanical components of the hatch system, designed to resist small arms fire and shell fragments, were not engineered to withstand the focused explosive force of a shaped charge detonated in direct contact with the mechanism. The hatch jammed shut with Richter, trapped inside his cupola, unable to open the mechanism despite repeated attempts with emergency tools. The explosion had bent the hatch frame and damaged the locking pins, creating a mechanical jam that could not be cleared from inside the tank. More critically, The blast had also damaged several of the cupola's vision blocks, significantly reducing Richter's ability to observe the tactical situation around his vehicle. Williams observed the results of his throw with a mixture of satisfaction and disbelief. The device had impacted exactly where he had intended, and the subsequent explosion had clearly damaged the commander's hatch mechanism. However, the broader tactical implications were only beginning to become apparent as the Tiger tank's crew struggled to adapt to their suddenly degraded operational capabilities. Without effective command and observation from the cupola, the Tiger tank's tactical effectiveness was severely reduced. Mueller could still operate the main gun, but his ability to acquire targets was limited to the narrow field of view provided by his gunner's sight. The tank's machine gunner and radio operator also found their effectiveness reduced, as they had relied heavily on Richter's directions and tactical coordination. German infantry positions around the village began to lose coordination as well, since Richter had been serving as the local tactical commander for the defensive effort. Without his radio communications and battlefield observation, individual German units were forced to operate independently, reducing their collective effectiveness against the American assault. Johnson immediately recognized the change in the tactical situation and began advancing from his position, using the confusion among German forces to close distance with key defensive positions. The Tiger tank, while still dangerous, was no longer providing effective overwatch and coordination for the German defense, creating opportunities for individual initiative and tactical movement. Staff Sergeant Henderson, observing the engagement from his position 400 meters to the west, understood immediately what Williams had accomplished. Henderson had sufficient experience with German tactical doctrine to recognize that disabling the commander's ability to coordinate and observe would cascade into broader tactical advantages. He immediately radioed for supporting forces to advance and exploit the disruption Williams had created. Captain Morrison received Henderson's radio report with initial skepticism, finding it difficult to believe that a single soldier with a handheld explosive device could significantly impact a Tiger tank's operational capabilities. However, Morrison was an experienced enough officer to recognize opportunity regardless of its source, and he immediately ordered 2 additional squads to advance on the village from different directions. The tactical situation continued to evolve rapidly as German forces attempted to adapt to the loss of centralized command and coordination. Individual infantry positions maintained their defensive fires, but without Richter's oversight, they were unable to coordinate fields of fire or establish mutually supporting positions. This allowed American forces to identify and exploit gaps in the defensive perimeter that would have been covered under normal circumstances. Obergefreiter Müller attempted to maintain effective fire against Johnson's advancing position, but his limited field of view made target acquisition increasingly difficult. The Tiger tank's main gun remained formidable, but Müller found himself essentially fighting blind, forced to engage targets based on muzzle flashes and sound rather than direct observation. This significantly reduced his accuracy and rate of effective fire. Williams used the tactical confusion to begin his withdrawal from the church ruins, moving carefully through the bomb damage and debris while maintaining observation of the Tiger tank's position. His immediate objective was to rejoin Henderson's position and report the results of his attack, but he also wanted to observe how the German crew would attempt to resolve their predicament. The solution attempted by the Tiger tank crew demonstrated both their training and their desperation. Unable to free Richter from his jammed cupola, Müller and the other crew members attempted to restore observation capability by having the tank's loader climb out through the main turret hatch and provide external observation. This expedient restored some tactical capability, but also exposed the loader to small arms fire and created additional vulnerability. Johnson recognized this opportunity immediately and engaged the exposed German crew member with accurate rifle fire, forcing him to take cover and eliminating the temporary solution to their observation problems. This left the Tiger tank crew in an untenable position. They could continue to fight with severely degraded capabilities, or they could abandon their vehicle and withdraw on foot. The psychological impact of Williams's successful attack extended beyond its immediate tactical effects. For the German crew, The realization that their sophisticated and heavily protected vehicle could be disabled by individual initiative and unconventional tactics was deeply unsettling. The Tiger tank represented the pinnacle of German engineering and military technology, yet it had been rendered ineffective by a single soldier with a handheld explosive device. For American forces in the area, Williams's success provided both tactical opportunity and psychological boost. The Tiger tank had been the dominant factor in the German defensive position, forcing American units to approach carefully and limiting their tactical options. With the tank's effectiveness neutralized, American commanders could employ more aggressive tactics and concentrate on eliminating the remaining infantry positions. The broader implications of the engagement extended to questions of military doctrine and technological advantage. The German military had invested enormous resources in developing heavy tanks like the Tiger, believing that superior firepower and protection would provide decisive advantages in combat. Williams' success demonstrated that sophisticated technology remained vulnerable to individual initiative, tactical innovation, and unconventional approaches. At 09:15 hours, Captain Morrison arrived at Henderson's position with 2 additional squads and immediate plans for exploiting the tactical opportunity Williams had created. Morrison had observed the engagement through binoculars and understood both the immediate tactical situation and its broader implications for ongoing operations in the area. His assessment was characteristically direct. Williams had accomplished something that conventional anti-tank weapons had failed to achieve through months of combat operations. Morrison's tactical plan involved coordinating simultaneous attacks on the remaining German positions while the Tiger tank remained effectively neutralized. 2 squads would advance from the north and east, using Johnson's position as a base of fire, while Henderson's squad advanced from the west to prevent German withdrawal. The objective was to eliminate the entire German defensive position before enemy reinforcements could arrive, or the tank crew could resolve their predicament. Williams reported to Morrison with typical military precision, describing his attack method, observed results, and assessment of current German capabilities. Morrison listened with growing amazement as Williams explained how he had used his football experience to calculate trajectory and timing for the precision throw. The captain's initial skepticism gave way to recognition that Williams had demonstrated exactly the type of individual initiative and tactical innovation that distinguished exceptional soldiers. The conversation between Morrison and Williams also touched on broader themes of military service and personal achievement. Morrison recognized that Williams's success challenged prevailing assumptions about capability and potential, particularly regarding African American soldiers who had faced systematic discrimination and limited opportunities throughout their military service. Williams's tactical innovation and successful execution under pressure demonstrated abilities that contradicted the prejudices and limitations imposed by segregation policies. Henderson's tactical assessment focused on the immediate exploitation of Williams's success. The German infantry positions remained dangerous, but their coordination had been severely disrupted by the loss of the Tiger tank's command and observation capabilities. Henderson recommended aggressive action to prevent German forces from adapting to the changed situation or establishing new defensive arrangements. Johnson's position provided excellent overwatch for the planned attack, with clear fields of fire covering the main German defensive positions. Johnson had already identified individual enemy positions through careful observation during his suppressive fire missions, and his marksmanship skills would be crucial for providing precision fire support during the assault. Johnson understood that Williams's success had created a time-sensitive opportunity that required immediate and decisive action. The German response to their tactical predicament reflected both professional competence and growing desperation. Unable to restore their Tiger tank's full operational capability, German forces attempted to establish alternative defensive positions using infantry weapons and portable anti-tank devices. However, these expedient measures were insufficient to replace the firepower and protection that the Tiger tank had provided. Hauptfeldwebel Richter's situation inside the jammed cupola was becoming increasingly desperate. The confined space, damaged ventilation, and rising temperature created both physical and psychological stress that degraded his ability to provide effective leadership for his crew. Richter's repeated attempts to force open the hatch mechanism had failed, leaving him essentially trapped while his crew attempted to maintain defensive operations. Müller continued operating the Tiger tank's main gun, but his effectiveness was severely limited by the lack of target acquisition capability. His training had emphasized the importance of rapid target engagement and accurate fire, but both were impossible without adequate observation and fire control. Müller found himself reduced to engaging suspected positions rather than confirmed targets, wasting ammunition and revealing his position without achieving meaningful tactical results. At 0930 hours, Morrison initiated the coordinated assault on the remaining German positions. 2 squads advanced from predetermined positions, while Johnson provided overwatch fire, and Henderson's squad moved to block potential withdrawal routes. The attack plan reflected standard American infantry doctrine, adapted to exploit the specific tactical advantages created by Williams's neutralization of the Tiger tank. The assault developed rapidly as American forces closed distance with German defensive positions. Without effective coordination from the Tiger tank, German infantry were forced to fight as individual units rather than as an integrated defense. This allowed American forces to isolate and eliminate positions systematically rather than confronting the entire defensive system simultaneously. Johnson's marksmanship proved decisive during the assault, as he engaged individual German soldiers attempting to coordinate defensive fires or reposition between buildings. Johnson's ability to deliver accurate fire at ranges up to 400 meters effectively suppressed German attempts to establish coherent defensive responses, allowing advancing American infantry to maintain momentum and tactical initiative. Williams participated in the assault as part of Henderson's squad, using his knowledge of the village layout, gained during his approach to the Tiger tank to identify potential German positions and withdrawal routes. Williams's tactical awareness, enhanced by his successful attack on the tank, provided valuable intelligence for the coordinating assault and helped prevent German forces from establishing fallback positions. The German attempt to continue resistance centered on a stone farmhouse approximately 200 meters northeast of the Tiger tank's position. This building provided excellent defensive capabilities with thick walls, multiple firing positions, and clear fields of fire covering the main approaches to the village. However, the building's defensive advantages were offset by its isolation from supporting positions and the lack of coordination with the disabled Tiger tank. Müller made a final attempt to support the German defense by engaging the farmhouse area with high explosive rounds, hoping to suppress American assault forces and provide covering fire for German infantry withdrawal. However, Müller's limited observation capability meant that his fire was largely ineffective, impacting areas where American forces had been rather than their current positions. The elimination of German resistance in the farmhouse required approximately 15 minutes of careful tactics and coordinated assault. American forces used grenades, small arms fire, and tactical movement to systematically clear the building while minimizing casualties and preventing German escape. The operation reflected the type of urban combat that had become routine for experienced infantry units during the final months of the conflict in Europe. Henderson's squad secured the Tiger tank's position shortly after the farmhouse assault concluded, finding the crew in various states of surrender and exhaustion. Richter remained trapped in his cupola, requiring nearly 30 minutes of careful work with cutting tools to free him from the jammed mechanism. The other crew members had abandoned their positions and offered no resistance to American forces. Williams examined the results of his attack on the Tiger tank with professional interest, noting how the Mark II fragmentation device had functioned and observing the specific damage to the commander's hatch mechanism. The examination provided valuable intelligence about the effectiveness of unconventional anti-tank tactics and confirmed Williams's calculations regarding trajectory, timing, and target selection. The captured Tiger tank represented a significant intelligence opportunity, providing American forces with detailed information about German armored capabilities and tactical doctrine. Morrison ordered the tank to be secured and prepared for transport to intelligence specialists who could conduct comprehensive analysis of its systems and equipment. The tank's capture also provided concrete evidence of Williams's tactical achievement and its broader significance. Captain Morrison's after-action report would document Williams's individual achievement in detail, providing official recognition of his tactical innovation and successful execution under combat conditions. Morrison understood that Williams's success challenged prevailing assumptions about African American soldiers and demonstrated capabilities that had been systematically underestimated throughout the military's segregated structure. The psychological impact of the engagement extended to both German and American forces in the immediate area. German units operating nearby Tiger tanks received reports of the incident that challenged their confidence in their vehicles' invulnerability. American forces, conversely, gained confidence in their ability to defeat sophisticated German equipment through individual initiative and unconventional tactics. Henderson's assessment of Williams' performance emphasized both the tactical significance of the achievement and its broader implications for military leadership and individual capability. Henderson recommended Williams for promotion and specialized training that would allow him to share his tactical innovations with other units facing similar challenges against German armored forces. Johnson's observations of the entire engagement provided additional perspective on Williams's achievement, noting the precision and timing required for successful execution of such an unconventional attack. Johnson understood that Williams's success resulted from a combination of natural ability, previous training, careful observation, and tactical innovation that distinguished exceptional soldiers from competent ones. The medical examination of Hauptfeldwebel Richter after his rescue from the jammed cupola revealed both physical injuries and psychological trauma resulting from his confinement. Richter's condition provided evidence of the effectiveness of Williams' attack method and its impact on enemy morale and operational capability. Richter's subsequent debriefing provided valuable intelligence about German tank crew training and tactical doctrine. The technical analysis of the Tiger tank's damaged commander's hatch confirmed Williams's tactical assessment and validated his approach to the target selection and attack method. The damage pattern demonstrated that focused explosive force applied to specific mechanical components could achieve disproportionate effects against sophisticated armored vehicles, providing important lessons for future anti-tank operations. Morrison's recommendation of Williams for the Silver Star Medal recognized both his tactical achievement and his demonstration of exceptional courage under combat conditions. The recommendation emphasized Williams's individual initiative in developing and executing an unconventional attack that achieved decisive tactical results through careful planning and precise execution. The broader strategic implications of Williams's success extended to questions about military integration and the effective utilization of human resources regardless of racial background. Williams's achievement provided concrete evidence that segregation policies were preventing the military from maximizing the capabilities of all personnel, limiting overall effectiveness and operational capability. The intelligence analysis of the captured Tiger tank revealed specific vulnerabilities in German armored design that could be exploited through similar tactics. This information was disseminated to other American units operating against German armor, potentially multiplying the tactical impact of Williams's individual achievement across multiple combat operations. Henderson's unit was subsequently assigned to specialized training missions focused on developing and teaching unconventional anti-tank tactics based on Williams's successful attack. Henderson's experience and tactical knowledge, combined with Williams's innovative approach, provided the foundation for training programs that would enhance the effectiveness of American forces against German armored units. The village of Kriegsdorf was secured by American forces within 2 hours of Williams's initial attack on the Tiger tank. The rapid elimination of German resistance demonstrated how individual tactical innovations could create cascading effects that influenced broader operational outcomes. Williams's success had transformed a potentially difficult and costly assault into a relatively straightforward tactical operation. Morrison's unit received commendation from regimental headquarters for their successful elimination of the German defensive position and capture of the Tiger tank. The commendation specifically noted Williams's individual achievement and its contribution to the overall success of the operation, providing official recognition of his tactical innovation and combat effectiveness. The captured German intelligence documents found in the Tiger tank provided valuable information about enemy defensive plans and troop dispositions in the immediate area. This intelligence enabled American commanders to plan subsequent operations with enhanced understanding of German capabilities and intentions, multiplying the strategic value of Williams's tactical achievement. Williams's personal reflection on his achievement emphasized the confluence of previous experience, tactical analysis, and battlefield opportunity that had enabled his success. Williams understood that his football background had provided essential skills for calculating trajectory and timing, while his study of German technical manuals had identified the specific vulnerability he exploited. The psychological transformation experienced by Williams during and after his successful attack reflected broader themes of personal achievement and recognition under combat conditions. Williams's success provided validation of his capabilities and potential that contrasted sharply with the limitations and discrimination he had experienced in civilian life due to segregation policies. Johnson's continuing friendship and military service with Williams provided ongoing perspective on the personal and professional impact of his achievement. Johnson understood that Williams's success had implications beyond the immediate tactical situation, challenging assumptions and creating opportunities that extended beyond individual recognition. Henderson's recommendation for Williams's promotion to Staff Sergeant was approved within 1 week of the engagement, recognizing both his tactical achievement and his demonstrated leadership potential under combat conditions. The promotion provided Williams with increased responsibility and authority that reflected his proven capabilities and battlefield effectiveness. The technical lessons learned from Williams's attack were incorporated into official training materials and tactical doctrine, ensuring that his innovative approach would be available to future soldiers facing similar challenges. The documentation of his techniques and their effectiveness provided lasting value that extended beyond individual recognition. Morrison's subsequent assignment to staff positions involved developing training programs that emphasized individual initiative and unconventional tactical approaches. Morrison's experience with Williams' achievement influenced his approach to leadership development and tactical innovation throughout the remainder of his military career. The post-combat interview with Hauptfeldwebel Richter provided additional insight into the psychological impact of Williams's attack on German forces. Richter's account of his experience being trapped in the jammed cupola revealed the terror and helplessness created by Williams's unconventional tactical approach, demonstrating its effectiveness beyond purely mechanical considerations. The broader historical context of Williams's achievement included the ongoing struggle for civil rights and equality that would continue long after the conclusion of the conflict in Europe. Williams's demonstrated competence and tactical innovation provided evidence that would later support arguments for military integration and equal opportunity regardless of racial background. The village of Kriegsdorf remained under American control for the remainder of the conflict, serving as a staging area for subsequent operations against German defensive positions. The successful capture and control of the village demonstrated how individual tactical achievements could influence broader strategic outcomes through their cumulative effect on military operations. Williams's correspondence with his family in Alabama described his combat experiences in general terms, while maintaining operational security requirements. However, his letters conveyed a sense of personal achievement and recognition that contrasted with the limited opportunities and systematic discrimination he had experienced before military service. The 761st Tank Battalion's subsequent operations benefited from the enhanced reputation and confidence gained through Williams's achievement and the unit's overall success at Kriegsdorf. The battalion received priority for equipment and personnel replacements that reflected official recognition of their combat effectiveness and tactical innovation. The German military's analysis of the incident at Kriegsdorf resulted in modified procedures for Tiger tank operations, including enhanced security for commanders' cupolas and revised tactical doctrine for urban combat operations. However, these modifications came too late in the conflict to significantly impact overall German defensive capabilities. American intelligence services conducted extensive debriefing of Williams regarding his tactical analysis and attack methodology, documenting his approach for potential application in other theaters of operations. Williams's analytical skills and tactical innovation were recognized as valuable assets that warranted systematic study and potential replication. The psychological counseling provided to Williams after his combat experiences addressed both the stress of combat operations and the broader social pressures associated with military service in segregated units. Williams's counselors noted his exceptional resilience and analytical capabilities that had contributed to his tactical success. Morrison's post-war reflection on Williams's achievement emphasized the waste of human potential, represented by segregation policies that limited opportunities for exceptional individuals regardless of their capabilities. Morrison's advocacy for military integration was influenced significantly by his direct observation of Williams's tactical competence and leadership potential. The historical documentation of Williams's achievement became part of the official record of American military operations during the final months of the conflict in Europe. This documentation ensured that Williams's tactical innovation and individual courage would be preserved as part of the historical record for future military professionals and historians. Henderson's post-war career in law enforcement was influenced by his military experience and his observation of Williams's achievement under pressure. Henderson's approach to leadership and crisis management reflected lessons learned during his military service, particularly the importance of individual initiative and unconventional problem-solving. Johnson's continued friendship with Williams after the war provided ongoing perspective on the long-term impact of their shared combat experiences. Johnson understood that Williams's achievement represented not only individual success, but also broader possibilities for African-American advancement in military and civilian careers. The Tiger tank captured through Williams's tactical innovation was subsequently displayed in American museums as an example of captured German equipment and American tactical effectiveness. The tank's exhibit materials included specific reference to Williams's achievement and the unconventional tactics that led to its capture. Williams's post-war education at Tuskegee Institute was supported through military benefits and enhanced by his demonstrated analytical capabilities and tactical expertise. Williams's academic achievement reflected the same intellectual rigor and innovative thinking that had enabled his combat success, leading to a distinguished career in engineering and education. The military integration that occurred several years after the end of the conflict validated many of the arguments that had been supported by examples like Williams's tactical achievement. Williams's demonstrated competence under combat conditions provided concrete evidence that segregation policies were counterproductive and wasteful of human resources. Morrison's continued advocacy for military integration throughout his post-war career drew heavily upon his direct experience with Williams's capabilities and achievement. Morrison's testimony before congressional committees and military review boards included specific references to Williams's tactical innovation and combat effectiveness. The tactical lessons derived from Williams' attack continued to influence American military doctrine for decades after the conflict, contributing to training programs and operational planning that emphasized individual initiative and unconventional approaches to complex problems. Williams's achievement became a case study in military schools and training institutions. Henderson's recommendation letters for Williams's civilian employment emphasized not only his military achievement, but also his demonstrated analytical capabilities and leadership potential under pressure. These recommendations helped Williams secure employment opportunities that had previously been unavailable due to racial discrimination. The psychological studies conducted on Williams and other African-American veterans provided evidence of their resilience and capabilities that challenged prevailing assumptions about racial differences in military performance. These studies contributed to broader understanding of human potential and the importance of equal opportunity in military service. Williams's subsequent career in aerospace engineering drew directly upon the analytical skills and innovative thinking that had enabled his tactical success during combat operations. Williams's professional achievements in civilian life continued to validate the potential that had been demonstrated through his military service. The historical analysis of Williams's achievement placed it within the broader context of African American military service and the struggle for civil rights and equality. Williams's tactical innovation represented individual excellence that challenged systemic discrimination and provided evidence for arguments supporting integration and equal opportunity. And that concludes our story. If you made it this far, please share your thoughts in the comments. What part of this historical account surprised you most? Don't forget to subscribe for more untold stories from World War II and check out the video on screen for another incredible tale from history. Until next time.